In case you didn't know, today is Back to the Future Day. It's the date that Marty McFly travels to the future in Back to the Future Part 2. So to help celebrate it, I wanted to give you guys a list of my top 5 favorite games that are about time travel. Now, to be clear, I did leave a few games out of this list because I didn't want to have games where time travel is a big surprise spoiler bit. So any game where, the antagonist is actually you from the future isn't on this list. We're just going to focus on games where time travel is right up front and present, starting with The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Now, chances are if you ask any Zelda fan which game is their favorite, they'll probably list this one, if not have it in their top 3 along with Link to the Past. It was the first game in the series to make the move to 3D, and it blew a lot of people away at the time with its use of time travel, switching between a young Link during a very idyllic and happy Hyrule, and adult Link after a whole bunch of shit hit the fan. Some of the game's quests and dungeons required you to do stuff as young Link, so that the repercussions of those actions could help you complete stuff as an adult. It's also worth noting that the game's direct sequel, Majora's Mask, also featured time travel, but only has you reset time by 3 days, rather than traveling between 2 different eras. Both games are excellent and definitely worth checking out if you've somehow missed out on them. Second up, we've got an older game that admittedly the time travel is really just a backdrop and story bit and not something that's actually a mechanic, but it's still a great game, and that's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Turtles in Time. Now, if you had a chance to play this game growing up either in the arcades or on the SNES in 2-player, it's pretty hard to deny that this is the best Ninja Turtles game ever made, and quite possibly one of the best side-scrolling beat-em-ups ever, especially for its time. Taking you through all kinds of different time periods like fighting enemies in the Wild West while riding a train, or riding hoverboards in the far future, this game was just a ton of mindless beat-em-up fun. Now, this game did get a full-blown remake a few years ago, but honestly, it had a lot of trouble living up to the original, so if you ever find one of the old-school arcade cabinets, or you have an SNES and you can track one of these down, it is something you absolutely must experience playing with friends. Third up, we're going to go a little more recent, but still older than a decade, with Time Splitters 2. Now, this came out in a time when online multiplayer was just starting to get big on consoles, so it's still focused on split-screen multiplayer, and it was the best game to do it since GoldenEye on the 64. Allowing you to experience multiplayer levels and a storyline taking place over all kinds of different time periods and different genres, wielding weapons varying from double-barreled shotguns from the Old West to futuristic plasma rifles. Now, admittedly, this is one of the games that hasn't aged quite as well as the others because so much has changed in the FPS genre since then, but it's still stupid fun to play with a group of friends in split screen just running around firing blindly. Fourth up is Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time. Now, the entire trilogy is great, but more specifically, the first game is by far the best. And while you don't do a ton of time travel within each game, the entire overall plot focuses on the idea of constantly going back in time, trying to fix different mistakes, and really only making things worse for yourself in the long run. And within each game, you do have a limited degree of time control by being able to rewind things you do, either to save yourself from a stupid mistake like jumping down a pit, or saving yourself from a bunch of damage that enemies inflicted on you. This game was a huge success when it came out and was by far one of the best action games of its time, and while later games in the series didn't fully live up to this trilogy, its influence can be felt across most 3D platformers and action games that have come out today. Now, last but far from least is a game that is close to my heart because it is one of my top 3 games of all time, and that's Chrono Trigger on the SNES. This was one of the first games to successfully use time travel as a mechanic, having you do things like travel to the past to make one decision that will have effects on the future that you're trying to save. And along the way, you recruit a whole party of people from different eras, including a cave woman, a robot from the future, and a knight cursed to live in a frog's body. It's one of the best games to have time travel as a mechanic, it's one of the best RPGs ever made, and is an absolute must-play in my opinion for anyone that likes retro games. Now, those were the 5 that I think were some of the best games to have time travel, but there is one honorable mention I think we need to make, especially for why I'm doing this list, and that's the Back to the Future game from Telltale. Now, this isn't one of Telltale's best works, but it was the first one to be really popular and began to really fine-tune the formula that we've seen across so many of their now really successful games, like The Walking Dead, Tales from the Borderlands, or The Wolf Among Us. Not only that, but it was a great unofficial continuation of the Back to the Future storyline, basically acting as a 4th movie, as well as featuring voice talents from the original cast. If you're a fan of the franchise and you never picked this up, it's definitely a title you need to check out. So those are some of my favorite games to have time travel. Like I said, there were a couple more that were really great, but I didn't want to include them here because how they use time travel is just a bit too spoilery. As always, if you guys enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up button to let me know, as well as subscribe if you haven't yet. I'll be seeing you guys soon with more content, but until then, I'm KevinKenson, and I'll see you guys later.